Hi again, everyone. Welcome to the Chad Harberts Show on the Sports Guys Iowa Network. If you've seen the show, we spend our time on this one talking with the movers and shakers from across Iowa when it comes to high school athletics, the people that are pulling the levers, the administrators, the coaches, the athletes, behind the scenes people. And today is really no different because we have a guy who is Oz and the Wizard of Oz. He's the guy behind the curtain. He's the CEO, the creator of the Sports Guys Iowa Network, our executive producer, Mr. John Gunderson. Hi, John.
Hey, Chad. Nice to be on. I love the Oz reference.
Little known fact, John and I talk and text about 15 to 20 times per week and have never actually met in person. Hopefully 3 weeks from now at State Track, we can make that happen.
Yes, we're definitely going to make it work at State Track. Yeah, what are we going to talk about today, Chad?
Sports Guys Iowa. I was brought in a little bit after the fact as a guest, and it's become a whole new thing, and it's very exciting on so many fronts. At a very base level, it's exciting to me because we're talking about Iowa sports, and it's something I grew up on. It's something I've always loved. And it might be Missouri Valley Conference. It might be small college football. And it certainly is going to be a lot of high school stuff. But I love Iowa sports. So at that level, it's very important to me. And it's a very great thing. But also on the level of what it could be. And that's where you are really got the wheels always going on what Sports Guys Iowa really could be.
Yeah, Chad, right before football last year in August, we're like, hey, let's start covering sports. Just a bunch of us, sports-minded folks. I've got a B2B publishing business. So I was like, okay, great. We'll put up a website. We'll start to talk about sports. And our original concept was really the small colleges here in the state. We started there, the Coes, the Wartburgs, the Grandviews, the Morningsides. We thought, okay, great. It's an outlet. And then as we got going, we started bringing in more high school. We're 100% volunteer, and it's really taken off. And now we've got 4 or 5 shows, and now you've got your high school huddle show where we've got fans sending us clips that we can publicize. And I'm excited how it's grown, especially on the high school side. One thing I'm proud of that we do is we're not a paywall site. You don't have to pay $40 to us every month, right? And so that approach has been pretty good, and it's been a lot of fun.
I think from my end, I appreciate the fact that we're operating at a breakneck speed. And I'm usually the only guy in my life that does that. Everybody else is slow down. But you're a guy that kind of operates at a breakneck speed. So I'm enjoying the pace in which we're trying to grow things.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. And talking about high school sports, you're starting interviews with ADs and coaches that, frankly, on podcasts and our YouTube videos don't get a lot of coverage anymore. So that's exciting. Like your interview with Tim Moses, where you're talking about the schools coming together. And then last week he became the AD. Those I think are really timely for parents, coaches, students, and fans to listen to.
And the thing I love is the stories in high school sports are endless. There's so many possibilities. There's still 340, 350 roughly high schools in the state of Iowa. And then you multiply that by an average of maybe 12 to 14 teams per high school and multiply that by the number of athletes and coaches with every team. It really is an endless amount of fantastic stories. And there's not enough people who love it as passionately as we do that really want to get in there like I did last night. I'm not trying to brag on myself, but last night, I was at a track meet for 6.5 hours, and it was cold, and it wasn't particularly fun. But at the end of the night, I got this great story on Marcus and Kate Tomljanovich from Cedar Falls, who are both good track athletes. They got an older brother who's running at Arkansas. But also, I just got to see some fantastic track and field from Western Dubuque. Quentin Nauman was there. I got to see Linmar. Just saw a lot of just awesome performances at a track meet. And that's a sport that isn't getting a lot of love from the media, even though it is the second fastest growing girls sport in America right now and at the high school level behind volleyball.
Yeah.
Track and field has really taken off, and Cedar Falls has the equivalent of about 3 track teams in one. They are so deep on both sides, boys and girls. It is amazing.
Yeah, I would completely agree, Chad. Like this week, I got off a little bit early on Tuesday from my regular job. I went down and shot a girls' high school golf triangular here in Des Moines. And I'm out there with a camera, and people are like, "What are you doing here?" Which
Yeah.
was awesome. Anything we can do to give coverage to these hardworking kids and coaches on a platform is what we were founded for. And it's been a blast. So I'm having a blast. Your shows continue to grow. It's been a lot of fun. So what are we going to go into next?
I think as we've talked over the last couple of months, I told you a little bit more about my history in Kansas City, running a boy girl basketball tournament over the holidays every year, and then coming very close to putting on a Missouri versus Kansas football classic at Arrowhead Stadium until I got pulled at the last second. As we talked about that, you jumped all over that idea, and we're already in the planning stages of getting what we hope will be a big football classic in Des Moines in 2027, 28. But in the meantime, we got some things cooking.
Yep. Yeah, we do. We're helping drive the Bob Brooks Football Classic this fall, where there's going to be 4 or 5 kickoff games that are featured, where we're going to give a lot of coverage. The schools will use their broadcast partner, or we've got a broadcast partner, Midwest Sports Plus, if they don't have one. But we're going to come in and try and cover schools across the state, 4 or 5 marquee games called the Bob Brooks Classic. For those of you who've lived in the state a long time, Bob Brooks is a legendary sportscaster. He was still doing TV shows 7, 8 years ago in his 90s. Chad here in the state. And his son, Rob, is the voice of Iowa Women's. He's on the football Iowa Hawkeye broadcast. If you live in the eastern part of the state, you may be able to watch his show that's on cable and KCRG over there. So we decided we want to showcase a kickoff to high school football. A lot of their states do it. When I moved back from Georgia, they have an event called the Corky Kell, which is like a premium thing where schools want to be involved. It's so big. It's such a kickoff to not just football, but the entire high school season. And football is up first every year. So we're hoping we can create some more publicity for it, create some excitement on the start of next year's, not just football, but then high school season.
And I think it's a great start. And obviously, we've got some big picture plans that come with a lot of hurdles. But when it comes to high school sports, I really don't care about hurdles. I love the challenges. But I think the big picture is if we can get 8 teams to agree to play on the same day at MediaCom Stadium or somewhere in the central part of the state, but I think MediaCom Stadium would be the ultimate site. If we can make that happen, where high school football fans can come in and buy one reasonably priced ticket and see 4 football games or 1 or 2 or 3, whatever they want to see, they can stay for all 4 if they want to, and see 4 football games featuring schools from around the state playing each other to kick off the football season. I think that would be just a fantastic way to start, like you said, not only the football season, but the whole high school sports season.
Yeah. Moving back from Georgia, my son was playing high school football down there. The Corky Kell, it was a dream of every kid to be in the Corky Kell, because to be selected was an honor. And the games that they play for the marquee Saturday games are in the Mercedes-Benz Dome where the Falcons play. And I can tell you, going to those games, there's 20,000 people in there. Football in the South is a different kind of animal, but football here is very big. So we're going to try and find a way to promote the sport and drive it through this classic. And it's going to be fun. We already got our first game confirmed. The news will be out on that soon. And this year, we're hoping to have 4 or 5 games get us started that will be at local high school fields. And it's going to be a big event. We're going to give out trophies, some scholarships, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And we hope it will grow. We'll hope that it will bring a spotlight on Iowa high school sports, not just for football, but for all the sports.
That's the one thing I forgot about as we talked about football, as we talk about athletes and coaches and whatnot. You and I have talked about this off air, but some of the facilities that some of these high schools still play in. And when you think about football, just on my side, you start thinking about the little Rose Bowl over the eastern side of the state, or you think about a Wapsie Valley's field, which is just a football field in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by cornfields.
Yeah.
Or you get to basketball, you start thinking about the Roundhouse in Marshalltown. There are some fantastic high school facilities all across the state that we need to be showcasing as well.
Yeah, no doubt, Chad. And then some of the newer stadiums, if you've been to West Des Moines Valley Stadium, you're like, whoa. The new Waukee Northwest Stadium, which I live by, is in a beautiful bowl, beautiful setup. So just to be able to highlight the schools, I think is also important. And it's the kickoff. It's football, it's volleyball, it's cross country. It's that kickoff to the fall season that if we can bring some spotlight to it and some fun, it's going to be a really fun project to work on. So you'll see a lot more from us on the Bob Brooks Classic. But we've got our first game. You'll start to see the announcements in the next few weeks. And we're going to promote it heavily during the summer to try and drive interest and excitement for whomever is hosting the game this fall.
When you mentioned the Waukees, and it may not be them, but it's somebody in the suburban Des Moines area, somebody down there invented the press box on both sides of the stadium.
It did.
And I can't believe nobody else has thought of that, because in the age of streamers now, in my area, including Cedar Falls, was a brand new stadium. There's almost no stadiums that can hold the media that wants to do high school football in this area, but the Waukees solved it. They put a press box on each side.
That they did. Both of them did, which is great. And right now, when I've been to games down there, they're not fully occupied either, Chad, which is something that needs to be fixed. We need more people, more fans, more everybody covering these games. These kids are working their butts off, and we need to get them as much sunshine for all that hard work that they put in.
The other thing that happened this week, it just happened on Wednesday, as we switch gears here, is conference realignment, which has been a big thing in Iowa going back more than 100 years. And people say there's no way. It was 1936 that the Cedar Wapsie Conference split in half and became the North Iowa Cedar League and the South Iowa Cedar League. And most of the schools still all exist, by the way, the Grundy Centers, the Belle Plaines, the Ackleys. So conference realignment's been going on for a long time, but now we have this unique situation when it comes to Waverly, Shell Rock, and Decorah. They were in one of the oldest conferences left in Iowa. They were in the Northeast Iowa Conference for over 100 years. And over time, when that conference formed, when it was Waverly, Shell Rock, and it was Decorah, and it was Charles City, and Oelwein was in there, and New Hampton, those towns were relatively the same size. Now, obviously, Waverly, Shell Rock, and Decorah have outgrown the other ones over the years, the Crescos of the world and whatnot. So those small schools pushed Waverly, Shell Rock out of the Northeast Iowa Conference in a 5-1 vote. There were some more things than just competitive disadvantage, but that was the main thing, was the smaller schools, Crestwood, New Hampton, Charles City, they just couldn't really compete with Waverly Shell Rock on a game-by-game basis anymore. So they forced Waverly out and made Waverly become an independent. And then, unbeknownst to Decorah, who Decorah did vote them out as well. It was 5-1 vote. Waverly Shell Rock was the only school that voted for themselves to stay in the league. The next year, the rest of those schools, when they can't find any new members, they take off for other conferences, and now Decorah is out by themselves alone. That's how it's been for the last couple of years. The situation, though, is when you look at the geography of Decorah and Waverly Shell Rock, they're outliers in this state. They're by themselves size-wise, and there's no other. Waverly Shell Rock's got Waterloo Cedar Falls nearby, obviously, but when you look at Waverly Shell Rock and Decorah and up that direction, there's nobody that large size that can be in a conference with them. So what's transpired since then is Decorah has tried to basically reform the Northeast Iowa Conference with everybody but Waverly Shell Rock. And Waverly Shell Rock has been turned down by every conference they've tried to join, the WaMac, the Mississippi Valley. And so there's a new law in Iowa that started that there is actual state law that conferences can no longer just, you can't just leave a conference anymore, get blown out of a conference without there being some kind of consideration in how we're going to keep that conference together. And this all came out of what happened with the Northeast Iowa Conference. So on Wednesday, that conference realignment committee met. And after all day meetings where literally every single school and conference that Decorah and Waverly Shell Rock were trying to partner up with made a 10-minute presentation on why we don't want them with us.
Yes.
The conference realignment committee ignored all of that. And I'm talking about Osage, I believe Central Arcadia, Key, the WaMac, the Mississippi Valley, every one of them, the Upper Iowa Conference, the North Central Conference, the top of Iowa, they all lined up against this. Regardless of that, the realignment committee decided that on a, I want to say 8-5 vote, Decorah should be admitted to the WaMac, and on a 12-0 vote, the Waverly Shell Rock should be admitted to the WaMac. And that doesn't make it automatic. That's just the recommendation of the conference realignment committee. And of course, the WaMac is vehemently opposed to having either school join their conference and is really opposed to Waverly Shell Rock, who's tried 3 times now to get in, been turned down 3 times, and went this way. And I know you track this. And when you think about it from a geography standpoint, it is absurd.
Yeah, it is. It's really unique. My background is our oldest son played football and basketball for Marion in the WaMac. So all my nieces played for Marion girls basketball there. So we were WaMac parents. And WaMac then, even 7 or 8 years ago, had Central DeWitt, had Anamosa, had Western Dubuque, had Maquoketa, and had Dyersville Beckman. It is the Wapsipinicon, the Maquoketa, and Cedar. That's what the WaMac stands for, those 3 rivers. It was in that area. Now you've had some of those schools go off and break off, and they've added in South Tama and Grinnell, and they've reconfigured the conference. But when you look at it geographically, Decorah and Waverly are way outliers. That's a long way. We were doing the calculations, Chad, and from Decorah to Williamsburg, which is the furthest I found. It's a couple miles longer than Decorah to Grinnell. It's 147 miles, and it's not interstate. So that's a good almost 2.5 to 3 hours with a bus. In Waverly, the closest school they have is Center Point, which is 61 miles away. And the closest school that Decorah has is Independence, which is 67 miles away. So you're talking about a process where on a Tuesday night with a doubleheader game, it's going to be a late night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ludicrous. And you can make some adjustments and maybe make those super long trips be on Friday. You can certainly go to divisional play, either north, south, or west, east, and try to lay some of that, not unlike the Iowa Star does now, because it's Riceville and Colo-Nesco are nowhere near each other, but they're in the same league because they have divisions.
Chad, the WaMac does a good job of that today. They have divisions where they manage that very well. So if you're way away from South Tama, let's say, or Independence, you're probably not playing South Tama much. Right. So they do a good job of that. But when we were trying to figure out the map and looking at it, we were like, how are they going to do this? Because South Tama and Grinnell are add-ons, and those are pretty far west for a lot of the schools, but they're way closer than Waverly, Shell Rock, and Decorah. So it's going to be really interesting. Like you said, it's not over yet. There's a 60-day appeal process, and not one of the schools voted for them to join. Not one of the schools nor the conferences. It's kind of like that old Warren Zevon song, Bring Lawyers, Guns, and Money. Maybe there's going to be some legal proceedings in this as they proceed forward.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to get bumped up against state law, and there's going to be a bad decision made, I think. It's a bad decision either way, because you can't have Waverly, Shell Rock, and Decorah continue to play as independents, because it's just really hard to schedule. I had a long talk with Greg Bodensteiner, the former AD of Waverly Shell Rock, who's still the girls' basketball coach, about this, and you're just In basketball, you're grabbing games whenever you can get them, which means you might have one game one week and 4 games the next week because you don't have a conference play to fall back on. But at the same time, Waverly Shell Rock goes to the WaMac. Suddenly, they're the second biggest school in the WaMac behind Clear Creek Amana.
Yeah.
And they're 200 students bigger than any of the 9 smallest schools currently in the WaMac. That is, by very definition, a competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, Chad, and that's where all sports are struggling with participation levels. And if you bring another powerhouse in who's beating all the other schools, it creates more and more problems for their smaller schools. And the domino effect is, hey, we don't have enough. We're going to have to go JV like a lot of girls basketball did this year. We're going to have to combine programs. These are all sizable schools, but if you create more competitive imbalance, that also adds to the participation issues.
And the sad thing about it is what I was saying is there is no good solution. There's only bad solutions. And so no matter what happens, a bad solution is about to happen to Waverly, Shell Rock, Decorah, the WaMac, somebody, and they all got to live with it and just not like it because something has to happen in regard to all this. The WaMac can't keep getting the same team applying for admission every year and turning them down every year. And Waverly, Shell Rock, and Decorah can't keep being independents. It's just untenable.
Yeah, Chad, I wonder, let's just take basketball, for example. Basketball now is doing boys, girls, doubleheaders at almost every 12, 13 years ago. There on a Tuesday night, the girls would go visit and the boys would have a home game. And on Friday, they would flip. So there was more of a not combination approach.
Right.
Now, in Wisconsin, where I'm from and have a lot of family that's involved in high school athletics, they still operate in that way because they're willing to say, hey, if you got to go an hour and a half, 2 hours to play a team that you're competitive with, that's the same size, do that. But the girls go, it's one team does it so that it's not an extraordinarily late night.
Right.
It's 2 teams back on the road by 8:30 and they're home at a reasonable hour. So I think there's some things that could come out of that like that, where maybe that boys, girls doubleheader thing gets reexamined on some of these. Let's just take basketball for that matter. And you start to do that more. You got a home game every Tuesday, you got a home game every Friday, but it's boys or girls, right? And it's not this back-to-back approach. I understand why they did it. It was financial, but I think it might be time to reconsider that.
What's funny, and I'll finish up on this, is it's almost the perfect situation now when in regards to both of them, but certainly Waverly Shell Rock, is to break up the Mississippi Valley Conference, bring back the old Big 8, because you're about to lose the Iowa Alliance Conference anyway. You're not long away from where Fort Dodge and Mason City need a home anyway.
Yep.
You could almost bring back the old Big 8 with Cedar Falls, Waterloo, Waverly Shell Rock, Decorah, Fort Dodge, Mason City. You almost be right back there.
Yeah.
Like it been like it was for 40 years.
Yep.
Before all these conglomerations happened.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It is interesting that state law is now, it's become a political issue because of really the 2 teams we're talking about, primarily Waverly, Shell Rock. I think it'll be good for the Go Hawks to be in a home and Decorah in a home. However that happened, they need a home because it's really tough for the kids and the parents. And there needs to be some sort of conference affiliation so they can better organize what they're doing. And it's frankly a fairness issue. If you're outside a conference, you have to scramble around all the time. It doesn't make it harder when it comes to state qualification times, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be fascinating. Who will appeal? When will they appeal? How will the schools do it? And how will the conferences do it? I think is going to be really interesting. But it's a very important high school issue because I think it involves not just conference affiliation, but it also involves participation. How do we keep young people involved in high school sports? These things at a macro level do affect that at a local level.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. John, I do appreciate the time and I really appreciate everything you're doing with Sports Guys Iowa. I think it's been an amazing thing to be part of for these last couple of months. I'm looking at the big picture, and I think it's going to be really huge going forward. I am going to get my hands on one of those polos very soon. I can promise.
Yeah, that you are. That you
But
are.
no, John, I do really appreciate it. I love being a part of this. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. I know we talk almost every day, but I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to go on the air and espouse about high school sports as long as I want, for whenever I want, because I love it so much, and giving us that forum, and giving the forum to the Missouri Valley Conference, giving that forum to the small college football. I think it's so important, and it's really important for the people that watch our shows to know you're the guy behind it all. You're the guy helping make it all happen. You're not getting as much credit. Maybe you're not on camera as much as we are, but you are the guy making all this happen. And you're the ultimate team player, because you're like, I'm putting a team together, and you know what? I'm okay with coaching it. I got a pretty good quarterback. I got a pretty good wide receiver. I got some decent linemen. We're going to make this all happen.
Yeah. Hey, Chad, I appreciate that. One other thing I would say to the listeners on the show, Chad's high school huddle show has taken off. He's really recreated the show he did in Kansas City 20 some years ago. We're starting to get a lot more people to send us clips and videos and highlights of high school sports. That's expanding by the week. Please go to sportsguysiowa.com, look up the Chad Harberts show on High School Huddle, and you'll see how to send us videos. We want to publicize the kids, and crowdsourcing this and getting videos coming in from all these schools is fun. It's fantastic. And we get to highlight these young men and women doing all their great work. And everybody likes to see themselves and their kids on camera. So please keep those coming.
Absolutely. We love it. We want to see them from all over the state, up and down the classes. Anything you want to send us, we'd love to get it on our show, which airs on Sunday nights. But John, thanks for your time. Thanks for everything you're doing for us. Appreciate you taking some time to come on to the Chad Harberts show and talk about all these great things. And certainly there are some even bigger things coming in the future.
Thank you, Chad.
All right. John Gunderson, the executive director, the CEO, the guy behind the scenes of Sports Guys Iowa Network, where you can see the Chad Harberts show, you can see High School Huddle, and you can see so many other great shows. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. We're all over the place. We're growing by leaps and bounds. Everything is available on YouTube. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. You cannot miss us.